So I spent the past 15 hours this past week after a couple of updates and the major update that gave the game an overall performance increase. This right here is actually my final review of Redfall Story and the gameplay until the DLC arrives or anything of the sort changes this game. I want to talk about the premise of this game just to kind of get you guys a little bit of understanding of what's actually going on here. This game has had the most rockiest the rockiest launch known to mankind. Probably to a lot of people, they're saying that this is probably the biggest flop of them all. But the main story of Redfall is a rather interesting one. I will not spoil the actual story just in case you guys are still playing it through it or want to beat it yourself, so I'll just give a quick synopsis. An island town in Massachusetts called Redfall falls under siege from vampires, and you play as four very, very intriguing characters who help to defend and save the town from the vampires' grasp, that grip. They had the grippers, right? While unraveling the secrets of how this all has happened. Now, my overall thoughts in the gameplay. Now, this part right here is what gave Redfall kind of the big oof, the big no-no. Metacritic gave it a bad score, IGN gave it a bad score, but my opinions may differ. Granted, I can say one thing. This game is not worth $70, but I still attempted to have fun as a solo player. I do have a couple of thoughts I want to speak about. So let's talk about the actual cast. So the cast consists of 4 characters. Layla, which is a trademark. She has telekinetic powers. She can manipulate the environment. You have Jacob, who is a long-range specialist type of the group. He's a sniper. You have Remy. She's the engineer of the group. And then you have Devender, which is this world's influencer of the group. And that was actually my based character that I used during my time throughout this entire playthrough. But where the game starts to have the most problems, where it's the most buggiest of them all, is the actual combat. The enemy AI during the beginning of the game's release was by far some of the actual worst. You can literally stand there in front of the AI, look them dead in the windows of their soul. They can look back at you. We're both looking at each other, right? We're like, well, I'm looking at you right now. Like, I'm looking at you. We're looking at each other. It didn't go no way. We kind of just looked at each other and nothing really happened from there. Until, they did the patch 1.1 update, which I did do a video about that. I will leave it in the top right-hand corner for you guys. But after that update, the enemies start throwing hands. And I think they throw a little too much hands. For a wee lad like myself, I was playing by myself. I didn't have friends. I mean, I did play a little bit pre-patch. But, my God, whatever they did, they juiced them a little bit. I did talk to you guys, my community, about certain things regarding the actual brand new update. A lot of people saying the AI is still bad. On my end of that spectrum, it wasn't bad. Them motherfuckers threw hands, bro. They threw hands, and my God, and I was swinging. I was like, weave. I was like counter. Like, I'm over here throwing hands with vampires, the bellwether dudes, the cultists, them all. Now, the game's weapons are limited to particular types like ARs, sniper rifles, handguns, and then the game also has vampire-specific based weapons like the stake launcher, the flare gun, and a UV gun. In order to execute vamps, your weapon has to have a stake on the end of it, or if not, you're going to do sometimes where I forget to put the stake on the weapon. I end up just punching the dude. Or you, as in my particular playthrough, I had Devender. His kit works very well with destroying cryptids. Right? His main ability that you can use that I was using a lot is he throws down like the staff on the ground, which gives off electricity. And if the vampires are low in health, it's a one-shot kill for them. So you don't have to go through the staking process. And then his ult, which basically is a petrification type ult. So periodically it will cast like a bright UV light, and it freezes the vampires just like that. So you don't really have to worry about it too much. It was great. It was definitely a great solo experience with him, especially if you're playing with friends. You're in an area where it has a bunch of vampires. Boom, just cast the ult. It works perfectly fine. Note, every character, just goes who has not played the game, every character you come across has 2 abilities, and they have an ultimate ability. And you can kind of mix and match. They do work well together. I played with a couple friends. We were all using our different abilities and ults and helping each other out as best as we can. But since we're talking about combat, Later in the story, the game introduces a brand new mechanic, which is the Rook Storm. This particular event, including the Vampire's Nest, which I'll talk about a little later, puts the character to be able to everything that you've learned about this game, use it and then juice it with steroids, because fighting the Rook hurts. This man is fast, this man is powerful, and he hits hard. Now, I do not know how it was playing against the Rook pre-patch when the game first launched, but post-patch, this man has hands and more hands than the regular vampires. He basically looks like he's like basically what happens is when you come across the Rook, you basically have to piss off the gods enough, which the gods in this game is referring to the vampire gods, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But you piss them off enough, they will send in a lightning assassin. That's what it looks like, because the whole area turns red. There's lightning coming down on different points of the map, and I'm just like, bro, what is happening? Like, I'm starting to get scared. I'm just like, bro, it's like, is it coming down on me, bro? And I'm just like, bro, what is going on? All of a sudden, boom, he appears. He hits a superhero landing, and I'm like, what are you? And then he turns around and looks at me. He just starts charging. I'm like, all right, well, I guess we're throwing hands now. And then you sit there in a very lengthy battle. Now, he can become a major problem if you're not kitted properly at that exact moment, whether you're dealing with a bunch of vampires, including the regular human militia men. It all sucks. It all sucks. I'm going to just put it to you that way. It all sucks. Moving on, I want to talk a little bit about the missions. So the missions, an hour or so in, and this will probably be my entire 15 hours of playing this game, a lot of the missions start to kind of repeat themselves. Mainly the side missions. The game doesn't have too many great side missions. So let's start at the beginning here. So you have your main storyline, which your main storyline is understanding who are all of the vampire gods, defeating the vampire gods, and saving Redfall. Kind of that 3 synopsis just summed up TLDR. That's kind of how this game is. You do have the safe house missions, which at every particular town in Redfall has a safe house that the survivors have created to, stay away from the vampires. They're very the same. Every safe house to get into, you turn on a generator powers on, shoots up UV lights, and now it's safe from vampires to come. I've watched vampires attempt to chase you into it, and then boom, they get immediately frozen in place due to the petrification from the UV lights. Now, the safe house missions, there's 2 per safe house. Keep that in mind at all times. 2 per safe house. So the first mission is basically destroying the vampire's hold on things. The missions are pretty much always going to be the same. They have, I think there's and it rotates 3 missions per safe house, and there's no diversity when it comes to the missions. Once you get rid of that mission, then you have the actual vampire underboss, which is the second mission of that safe house, and that's actually destroying the underboss of that area. They basically answer to the major vampire gods, and they can become a pain in the ass later in line when you're running into their stronghold and you got to kill them. But once you destroy them, you could be able to take their skull and you add that skull to the collection. I'll tell you what those skulls are needed for a little bit later. Other than that, you have the actual side quests that are given to you by the actual NPCs that you will come across in your game. Sometimes you can even come across a side quest by reading a piece of paper if you're in a particular area. Now, with the vampire underbosses, you need at least 3 underboss skulls to even challenge the 4 vampire gods, which they consist of the Hollow Man. The Hollow Man is the first god and you will ever have an encounter with or meet or even hear about, because it pretty much reigns over the first part of Redfall. Then once you defeat him, which he'll be your first god, then you can actually move on to the Burial's location in Redfall, which consists of 2, technically 3, but 2 vampire bosses, which is Bloody Tom and Miss Whisper. Then you have the Black Sun, which is the final boss of the game, and I'm going to call this one the side god, which is Charles Beck. A lot of these are heavy story amplifications. I'm not going to spoil anything, just kind of give you the synopsis, the gist of what's going on when you're doing these missions. A lot of these missions are definitely a rinse and repeat. Even the boss fights are kind of lackluster. The Hollow Man fight, you can cheese like crazy. His is not that difficult. The Bloody Tom fight was easily cheesable. I think like the only fight that I've seen was actually a problem when it came to a vampire god would actually be Miss Whisper. Her fight was interesting, but it could become a pain in the ass. And then I can also say the Black Sun, because the Black Sun, you don't actually even fight her as a boss. You're fighting a rook that is on steroids. And I'm just like, Akira? It hurts. It hurts so bad. Another major mission, I would say, I wouldn't call it a mission per se. Like, it's not a mission. It's more like a side quest, but it comes around like it's like a world event, if that makes sense. It's called the Vampire Nest. It's a decent addition to the game where it's kind of understanding, and you can also understand the psychic spaces as well that these vampires are having in mind. Like, they got this twisted world that captures their memories before they became a vampire, and that is a huge implication in the main overarching story of Redfall. Now, here's everybody's favorite part that they want to talk about, which is the overall performance of Redfall. Now, throughout the 15 hours of me playing, which this 15 hours consists of the game first launch, so the first week of the game, I kind of stopped playing for a bit, and I finally came back and just wanted to beat it. So my gameplay of that 15 hours is consisting of two things: pre-patch, post-patch. So pre-patch 1.1 and post-patch 1.1. And this is pretty much what I've noticed, and I've seen these problems on both sides of that spectrum. First problem, frames would randomly drop in battle, which I would drop from the 30 frames per second, which is max, and it would just go right to like 10. I don't know, it's weird. The overall performance of the game was rough. It did get cleaned up in post-patch, but it was still rough overall. Textures will look bad in certain areas, so like when you're walking like inside of a town or inside of a house, the texture will just completely drop its quality randomly out of nowhere. And one thing is, it is an open world based game. The world did feel a bit empty, especially in that open world aspect. And a lot of enemies are spread apart. Like, there's a lot of abandoned areas, and you can tell like the games are only being put in relative areas, and I'm just like, sure, I guess. Like, it catches you a break, but they were saying they were trying to implement better AI post-patch, and I still didn't really notice a lot of urgency in these off-end areas. Like, I feel like I could just sneak through everything, just walk without a single problem. Now let's move on to my final thoughts about Redfall, and I wouldn't say my final video, but I've covered Redfall a lot of times since its release, so until something new come out, I'll talk about it then. But one, overall, the game is still fun. It is a fun game to shoot shit with the boys, have a drink with the boys, and just shoot vampires and have fun. That's how I see it. That's how I came into it. That's how I played it. Now, this game took me 15 hours to beat, 18 levels that I finished the game at. I didn't really try to max anything out, but I did get enough to get a general idea to help me beat this game. And of course, multiple side quests later. Now, the biggest question, this game is marked at a $70 price tag. No, the hell is it not worth $70? This game is not worth $70. I've seen better games worth more. But I have been playing it on Game Pass, so a lot of my experience in these past 15 hours have been on Game Pass. So do I know what it's like buying the game outright on Steam or something of that nature? Or if somebody just refused to get Game Pass and you want to just buy it, do I know the experience of it? No. If anybody is thinking about getting Redfall or want to try it yourself, do not spend the $70. Wait for a sale. And even then, I would even say wait for a sale. I would say just if you got $10 and you want to take advantage of the Xbox Game Pass, do it. That's what I did. I'm not waiting for no sale because I don't think this game is worth the sale. But is it a fun 4-player co-op that you can just go shoot shit with the boys? Sure. Does it have a lot of problems with it? Yes. Will a lot of updates come fix this game? Yes. Because at the end of the day, in my honest opinion, I think this game has potential and it has a greatness to be good. One other problem I wish that they did have, I still wish that the progression carried over from the multiplayer lobbies to the solo player lobbies. So if you do a lot of work with your friends and you go to play this game by yourself, just know none of that work carried over. With all of its problem that it did have, I still enjoy the game and just decided to have fun. I am not the most critical person with the game. I would just say, I would call it like it is. I would tell you my piece and go from there. I did get heavily invested in the deeper parts of the actual story and learning how the residents in town were handling the vampire situation and seeing how following certain side quests led to a bigger part of the story and how the humans are trying to fight back the vampire infestation. But other than that, do I highly recommend it when it's a free game for Game Pass? Sure. Play with the boys, or you want to play by yourself just to, get a gist of this story, understand the game for yourself, go right ahead. Do I say pay for it at $70? Hell no. Don't even do it. But other than that, I don't know what you guys think about it. Let me in the comment section below. If you guys want to see the rest of my Redfall content, I'll leave it in the top right-hand corner, like right up here. If you want to check out any other like RPG-related content, you already know your host, KSDTV, has it covered for you. But as always, it's been your host, KSDTV, here at Chaotic Inc., signing out. Peace.
I make a manifest. I don't sleep, that's so weak. Don't plan to rest. I'm from a hood where you die if you don't pack a vest. No culinary degrees, but whipping crack the best. Chefing, hard times taught lessons. Praying every night to pull up in park Benzes. What's my home is what you call trenches. You wouldn't last a day seeing life through all lenses. It's all tension, no sun, and rain and plenty. Full-time job, still can never make a penny.